Welcome to the second episode of Coffee with B. In today's episode, we are looking forward to take you through why anybody should consider investing in real estate and what's happening currently in the real estate market. So for today's discussion, we've got with us Anika Williamson, Director at Judd Holdings PLC and Judd Property Group Private Limited. Judd Holdings is a well-diversified conglomerate which specializes in wood coating, furnishings, ceilings, kitchen, wardrobes, vanities, and much more. We're currently working on the Hampton Hills project for 102 thoughtfully designed homes, and have also been a part of various other projects, including apartments. So today we are the head office showroom. Hi, Anika. Hello. To start off with, I would like to ask you, what do you think is the general perception among all Sri Lankans regarding investing in real estate?
So I feel generally Sri Lankans tend to look at investment as a safer investment option. Sorry, real estate as a safer investment option. I think companies like Senfin doing a bit more education in the other options for investing will definitely change this sooner rather than later, which I don't necessarily want as a property developer, but it's always good to get some different options available to investors and people looking to grow their money.
Yes.
Real estate is something that has been part of our culture for so long. People understand it. There is still very much that idea of having your first home, the pride that it gives when people walk into your home. So as an investment, it's a great option. And it's a way to sort of hedge. If you can hold something for long term, it's a great way to sort of get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's nothing like having your first home, right? So
That's
even
right.
whether it's an investment or just owning an asset, it is a beautiful way to actually go into investing.
Yes, thanks for that, Tanika. To move on, so what are the current trends do you think in terms of choosing like the geographical location? Yeah.
So we've seen a really interesting shift in geography that people actually are looking at. A lot of growth in outer suburbs, similar to Talawatagara, Malabe, those sort of areas, whether it's an affordability reason or because of a lack of affordability, or the increase in infrastructure. For me, I grew up in Talawatagara, and 20 years ago,
Right.
you're looking at dirt roads, no access to like real supermarkets
Correct.
or anything like that, as opposed to if you go out on the street at the Jack Head office in Talawatagara, and you have all the best supermarkets around, your top four banks are here, you have access to some amazing hospitals, and some of the best schools in Sri Lanka as well. So I think overall, we've seen a shift in people actually looking at outer suburbs for investment. It goes down to affordability as well, with a change in vertical living or more options of apartments. You see suburbs like Rajagiri or definitely in Colombo.
Yeah,
You
that's
see a
true.
lot more apartment complexes, and that will make it more accessible for people to go into those suburbs as well, or geographic.
Right, okay. And then, once again, speaking about the current trends, what do you think, like, people, like, would invest nowadays, the majority, or, like, the preferences when it comes to the types of living spaces? And also, why do they, like, buy a purchase land and property, like, whether it's, like, mostly for immediate living, or whether it's for future living purposes, or just solely for investment purposes?
So living spaces is a lovely area. We work very closely in this space,
Right.
and it's something that is very close to my heart as
Yes.
well. I was sharing before, with our kitchens, that's
Yes.
something that we really put a lot of effort in, the aesthetic needs that a customer has to achieve. But in terms of living spaces, we do notice people actually choosing to have bigger living rooms as opposed to bigger bedrooms. Simple
Yes.
things like that, where there's more of an indication of spending more time together as a family,
Right.
and prioritizing, spaces that they can come together. we also understand that people like to have living and dining on the same area. So we deal with some multi-level houses, and just having that living space all on one area is something that people definitely appreciate. And so your second question was in terms of,
Yes, in terms of whether like most of them go for like immediate living purposes, like for future living,
yeah,
or for solely investment properties,
yeah,
like renting it out or things like that.
yeah. So it all right now, especially with where the interest rates are, in terms of where inflation is, most people we're seeing are looking for immediate living purposes. Uh, just because if you do the maths on a 50 million loan, you're looking at about a repayment monthly of 540,000, which is not very affordable for a majority of people out there. If you're looking to purchase a property, or what we're seeing is it's either someone who's just sold out of a property that's looking to get back into a different space, maybe they're upgrading or sometimes downsizing. Predominantly, we're seeing buyers that are looking for immediate occupation, but we are seeing a lot of outside interest coming in from investors overseas.
Okay.
So that's been really interesting. Yeah. We have a project in Hantana for 102 houses, and we've gotten so many inquiries from people overseas who are looking to come back in and establish a footprint in Sri Lanka, which is great. And they're looking at it whether it's an investment option or something that they hold, maybe have their older parents living there, or they keep it as a holiday home when they're in Sri Lanka, they have it as an option to stay.
Right, okay. And now since you're like mainly into property development, I think I should ask you this question. So what do you think individuals like should consider, like the key factors they should consider when investing in real estate?
I love this question. For me, I always talk to someone and ask them what their main goals are. What are you looking to achieve? Starting with that is so important. Whether you're looking at something that you can hold for a long time and you're just looking at that capital growth, or if you're looking at something that can give you really good cash flow. Do you want a property that's cash positive, or you have the ability to actually maintain a rental property where your inflows might not actually match your outflows? Understanding that is really key. The other part is, who do you want to maybe rent to? Is this someone, are you happy to rent to just families, or are you okay to look at students? Do you want maybe older tenants who you know are going to be there for a longer time? Understanding that first is really important, and localizing it to yourself. Then, as cliche as it sounds, location, location, location. That is, any person in real estate will tell you this. The location that you choose is the most important. Um, that can really impact your rental yields, which is the next thing that you need to look at, and just understanding how your rental income is going to go. One thing with Sri Lanka in particular, I find, is doing a really good inspection with the property that you're looking to buy. You don't want to purchase a property, be all excited about it, and then end up with a really big maintenance bill. We've seen it time and time again where we talk to some of our friends who are really excited because they've made this big purchase, and usually property is a fairly big investment. And then, their tenants come in and they've been stuck with one bill after another after another. There's a water leak here or whatever it is. So that's something that I think is really important to really check. But like I said before, understanding what your personal goals are, and your financial status, of course, is really important when deciding on investment property.
Right, thanks for that, Anika. And also to deviate a little bit towards the economic situation. So how do you think like the economic changes, like, the interest rates and inflation and things like that do affect the affordability of homes and also the real estate market overall?
Yeah. Affordability, we've seen it. It's crazy to think that not so long ago our interest rates were at 32%.
Yes.
So when you look at 15% now, it's like, oh wow, okay, this is good. We can do this. We can deal with it. But it's still, like I was sharing before, 546,000 rupees for a monthly repayment on a 50 million loan. You look at our population, how many of us can actually afford it? So that higher interest rates definitely impact the real estate industry for sure. Purely because, as a developer, for me to construct a property, I have to then work at a much more higher selling rate. So that impacts what I actually give my customers as well. As a purchaser, it impacts what house range you're going to go for. You might have been able to afford a house in the 80 million range, but now you are forced to look at a lower price point because purely because of affordability. Um, so that is one aspect. The other one is when you mentioned inflation, again, that relates to affordability in the sense of when inflation is really high, contractors are forced to charge higher prices for their construction, which has a waterfall effect to the final selling price. With our apartment buildings, we've seen properties that we sold at say 25 million at the start and going back quite a few years now. By the time we finished, they're selling at 45 million. And that's purely based on inflation. It's based on the fact that the replacement cost of this building is now so much higher. And people are of course willing to buy something that's finished and they're willing to pay a premium for it. But the cost to replace this and they know they can't get into the market at that price point anyway. So we've seen a lot of our customers actually really benefit from the high inflation rates when they bought in earlier to the projects and then sell out maybe just before it's completed or upon completion. And that takes me to my second point where high interest rates and high inflation can be beneficial for some people.
Right.
If you are someone who's lucky to have a healthy cash flow, have the assets that you can leverage to actually get into the real estate market at a point when interest rates are higher or inflation is higher, you're more likely to get a really good buy on property. We saw this when, like I mentioned before, when interest rates went up to 32%, where people were just fire sales left, right, and center. I mean, properties were going at such a reasonable rate because people just couldn't afford to service the loans that they had. And while that is a really sad situation, certain people did really benefit from it. So it was it was a really interesting. It's a really interesting dynamic to sort of look at. And I guess it goes down to that age-old adage of the rich keep getting richer, right?
Yes.
So it's getting your foot in the door. I think as soon as possible when it comes to real estate, I would say.
Right. And also, we know for a fact that sustainability nowadays plays an important role among the whole society.
Mhm.
So I think you would second that as well.
Yeah.
So what role do you think sustainability plays when it comes to modern real estate development and design?
So it's been really great to see even the Sri Lankan government has understood how important sustainability is. As property developers, when you're going for an approval for a building now, you do have to actually adhere to so many different standards, ensure things like rainwater harvesting, more energy efficient lighting, whether it's allowing actual natural light. You can see around the space you have a lot of natural light coming in. Green buildings as well is something that's absolutely essential. So while these are government mandated, there is also a push from consumers to expect almost sustainable building. And that can be from even our choice of the material that we use, whether it's going away from solid wood to maybe using engineered wood. Um, there's a lot of alternatives that are coming out. Definitely using things like solar panels wherever you can, renewable energy. We have a space that we're working with electric vehicle chargers, and that we're seeing a massive uptick. And it's almost become a mandatory thing to put into your property developments now to have a EV charging station. So sustainability overall, I think, is definitely something that people are worried about, and for good reason.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that as well, Anika. Can you also discuss any collaborations or partnerships you have with local communities and any government entities in your development project?
Sure. So the Hantana Hills project that I mentioned a little while ago, where we're building 102 houses, that's actually a partnership with the National Housing Development Association, NHDA. And that's been a really interesting process. So we're working in line with government authorities. NHDA has to be part of the approval process. They've really been with us as a really good partner. And I think public-private partnerships are so important. It's a way that we can look after the wider community while also making sure that private entities like ourselves, like Jack Property, can actually make a bit of money because we're all in that game, of
Yes.
course. But it's important to have that community tie-ups, understanding that all stakeholders involved are looked after, their needs are looked after. It's working with the government, of course, can present some challenges, but we have a great team at NHDA who works very closely with us and helps us with our approvals, all of those things. So for me, it's a very different style of project. Usually, when we do one that's a private one or that is completely done by us, we're able to make decisions on sales prices, what sort of marketing material goes out, those sort of things. But when you work with a government agency, of course, it's governed by a much bigger mandate. So understanding those aspects and being able to work with it, does involve a little bit of a little bit more admin work, but we're really proud of the product that we've been able to deliver so far and the partnership that we've grown.
Right. So this is my final question for you. So how do you ensure inclusivity in your design?
Um, this is something again really important to me. I mentioned slightly before about the living spaces that people would like their living and dining and entertaining all on the same floor. So we do multi-story houses and ensuring that that is actually included. Um, Making sure that you have disabled access, so whether it's disabled ramps. I read somewhere recently that when you include more special able facilities, or whether it's from your bathrooms to, like I said, the ramps that make the properties more accessible, overall communities actually benefit, right? And I think you and I are blessed to be fully able and fit, but I feel for people who aren't in that position. So making sure that a property is inclusive is extremely, extremely important. We're blessed to be in an industry with Jack Holdings where we can work on things and even do bespoke kitchens. So, for example, this kitchen that you see here, we can actually even adjust the height of the kitchen. So if someone is not able to reach up into high spaces, we can actually work with the customer and do those changes. Um, I think it's extremely important. We have to think and build that in. We're fortunate with a lot of the architects in Sri Lanka. They're very thought driven and very inclusive in their design. So this is something that's part of the course for us. Really.
All right. So thank you very much, Anika, for taking your time to join us today.
My pleasure.
Your insights were like incredibly valuable, and also we truly appreciate your contribution to our discussion.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. So we have come to the end of today's episode, and see you soon with another episode of Coffee with B. Thanks for watching.